In today's video, we have some trade talk around the Chicago Blackhawks and their top stars Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, as well as Max Domi, and others that could be moved ahead of the deadline, plus big news regarding the Maple Leafs. The team has been fined $100,000. The coach Sheldon Keefe has also been fined as well. We're going to recap the second day of the World Junior Championships. Also have a big rumor in the next year's Winter Classic and a whole lot more from around the league, including a potential coaching change in Vancouver. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade talk to take a look at today. First up, I want to start with the big news from the NHL tonight regarding the Toronto Maple Leafs. We got a couple of hefty fines handed out, one to the coach and one to the team. First up, let's talk about the team fine that the Maple Leafs were receiving here. The team has been fined $100,000, which I know for a big organization like MLSE probably isn't considered to be a lot of money, but it is still pretty substantial. This was received for traveling on Boxing Day, December the 26th. So as we know, the NHL and the CBA has mandated that the teams and players get 3 days off around Christmas. This year was going to be the 24th, 25th, and 26th. The actual language in the CBA outlines that basically the 24th and 25th are always going to be included in that. The 23rd can be substituted for the 26th, depending on the calendar and the schedule, etc. That was not the case this year, though. So for the teams, for 24th, 25th, 26th, no team activities, essentially. Now, to me, there's an issue with this, but here's the thing, is it's the same for everybody across the league. So the Maple Leafs were originally scheduled, I believe, to fly out for their road game on December 27th, the morning of, around 5 a.m. Instead, they left the night before. I think it was around 10:30 p.m. or something to that effect on the 26th. So technically, by the time they landed, it would have been after midnight. It would have been considered the next day, the 27th. Kind of an issue of semantics here, but you know what? At the end of the day, I understand from the Leafs' perspective, they want to keep the players on their normal routine. They normally would travel the night before, get into the hotel, get a good night's sleep, have a morning skate, stay on routine. It's important for the players, and obviously you don't want to be at a competitive disadvantage, right? I understand that. I get it. But I guess the rules are the rules, and it's pretty black and white when it comes to the NHL. They didn't adhere to that. Now, I guess any other team that had a road game yesterday would have had to wait and travel the morning of the game. So obviously there was a lot of games yesterday. A bunch of other NHL teams would have probably preferred to do the same thing, but chose not to. It has to be a level playing field. So as much as I understand why the Leafs would want to do that, I also, understand that it needs to be a complete level playing field. However, my other gripe with the NHL around this is maybe the first day back after the holiday break should be a practice day for the teams. Maybe there should be no games on the 27th, so teams don't have to travel the day of like that. Especially in some of these cases, they had a good distance to go. Or maybe you have a light schedule for just maybe a few games on the schedule with teams that don't really require much travel. So maybe like Rangers versus Islanders, or the Devils against the Rangers or Islanders or Flyers, or something like those Metro teams that are all lumped really close together. Maybe a Montreal, Ottawa, they could take the train back and forth the day, a morning of or something. Things like that, things that you don't really require to go too far. The California teams, even maybe LA Anaheim or something like that. There's lots of options. You can have a rivalry game as the first day back in action without requiring a whole lot of travel. Let all the other teams have a day to practice and then travel afterwards. I mean, to me, it's a pretty simple solution that eliminates teams from even contemplating breaking the rules. But like I said, I understand why the rules are there. It has to be the same for everybody, to have a level playing field, no competitive advantages. So I get it. But at the same time, I think the NHL could be completely different about this so that it's not even something they have to consider doing. And in the Leafs standpoint, they picked up a big 2 points last night against St. Louis. They're probably looking at this saying, you know what? We bought ourselves, they didn't buy a victory, but they bought themselves a way to stay on schedule and give themselves a competitive advantage to be better prepared for the victory, I guess you could say. But still, really, they're not going to care too much about that, and it's really kind of silly. But I do understand that it's a labor issue. It's in the CBA. It's supposed to be a day off. You can't force them to travel. I don't know. I mean, if all the players were agreeing to it, is it still an issue? I'm not even sure if that could be contested or not. Anyways, it's a really silly thing. I'm really surprised to hear this. And, I get it, but I don't like it. And I think the NHL should change how they do things coming out of the break so that this isn't even an option. And Sheldon Keefe's fine had nothing to do with traveling at all. Of course, it was because of his, what they call demeaning conduct towards the officials during the game last night. I know we saw a pretty good Sheldon Keefe meltdown. And he's getting fined for said meltdown. Now, I've seen some people making some good points. You see, obviously, sometimes coaches feel the referees made a big mistake. They lose it, and they'll have a meltdown like you saw there. And maybe that's inappropriate. Maybe it's something you shouldn't see. But at the same time, are those referees who made the big mistakes, are they getting reprimanded? I would hope so. I mean, obviously there is referees, senior officials that they all have a reporting scale. They're all reviewed and everything. So I don't know, but it's none of the stuff around the officials or the referees are ever made public. So maybe the referee was spoken to about something that happened that should have been done differently. We'll never know, though, is the problem, right? So obviously they do that for a reason. But anyways, interesting to see the big news around the Leafs and having themselves a costly Boxing Day into the 27th. Probably not the Christmas present that they were hoping for, but hey, at least they continue playing good hockey and they got themselves a victory despite everything that they had to go through to get there. Some Day 2 results from the World Junior Championships. We saw a little bit more of our, kind of results we were expecting to some degree. Finland defeated Slovakia 5-2. A few players having some great games, including Oliver Kapanen and Joakim Kemell. Kemell and Kapanen both had a goal and an assist. Brad Lambert, Winnipeg Jets prospect, also scored a big goal as well. Sweden defeated Germany 1-0. That was a very tight game. The German team was, especially the goaltender and the defense, actually, I thought played pretty well. I saw most of that game. Adam Engstrom scored the lone goal, and Lindbaum got the shutout for Team Sweden. So it'll be interesting to see where that how that impacts the standings here with the rest of the games. Switzerland had another overtime game. This one went to a shootout, a longer shootout as well, a 7-round shootout. Switzerland 3 over Latvia 2. So Switzerland upsets the Finns with an overtime win, and then they were probably expected to beat Latvia in the same sort of format, except it went even longer. So far these games are not really as easy to predict as you would think. And Czechia had a big 9-0 victory over Austria. Nothing too shocking there. Yuri Kulich had a 3-goal game. Svozil and Spacek each put up 3 points apiece. And Sukanik, the goalie for Czechia, put up the shutout for them. So they had a good start to the tournament here, winning their first 2 contests after the upset victory over Canada on Boxing Day. Some potential news around NHL coaching. I mean, this is not an NHL news article per se, but it is something I think could affect the NHL coaching universe, and that is the Zurich Lions in the Swiss League have parted ways with head coach Richard Grönborg. Of course, the longtime Swedish coach, well respected, been long rumored to be coming to the NHL. Has never had an NHL head coaching job. He was supposed to be done at the end of this year. His contract basically was expired at the end of the year. I think it was already common knowledge that he was likely going to part ways with the team, but they decided to part ways with him early, and they've actually rehired Mark Crawford. Of course, longtime NHL head coach, any former coach of the Zurich Lions himself, to come back, and he signed, I believe, a contract for the rest of this year and 2 more years. So Crawford, of course, after coaching in the NHL for around, I think it was 14 or 15 years, went over to Europe and coached that team back in the early, I think it was around 2012. He was there for a few years. So Crawford, familiar with the city and the team and the ownership group there, goes back and takes over for Grönborg. But the big news is Grönborg may be heading to Vancouver. We know the Vancouver Canucks are pretty likely to make a coaching change before the end of the season. At least that's what many people believe. Most Vancouver media and NHL reporters and insiders don't think Bruce Boudreau will survive the entire season, and that they're most likely going to make a change later in the year and give the new coach, at least a bit of time with the group to kind of feel things out before going into next season. Grönborg's often been linked to a variety of NHL teams, and of course a team like Vancouver with a Swedish general manager, and a lot of European players, especially like Pettersson and Ulrik Larsson. There's a big Swedish contingent there. Obviously the Sedins, longtime players, are now in the management group as well. They're just, it's something that you've seen a lot of a European flavor and Swedish flavor in the Canucks organization, and it's worked well. So it wouldn't be shocking to find out if Gromberg ended up being the next head coach in Vancouver. Of course, that's just strictly a rumor. The only fact of the story is that he's no longer coaching Zurich. He's now available, and it makes you wonder. So we'll have to stay tuned and watch that as we get closer to later in the year when it's more likely that Boudreau could be let go. Some NHL injury notes from around the league last night in the Senators-Bruins game. They lost defenseman Nikita Zaitsev, went down for Ottawa. He took a shot which looked like it was somewhere in the bottom part of his leg. It wasn't quite clear if it was more of an ankle or a knee issue, but he did leave the game early in the second period, did not return. Coach DJ Smith says he's going to be out for a while, so they had to play more than half the game with 5D. I believe Shabbat and Sanderson really racked up a lot of minutes last night in helping Ottawa pull off a 3-2 victory over Boston for the second time this year. Obviously, the Bruins have been phenomenal, the top team in the NHL, but Ottawa's actually beaten them twice, which is quite an accomplishment for them. They've called up Jacob Larson to be the extra defenseman to replace Zaitsev here on the roster for the time being. No clear-cut answer yet exactly how long he'll be out, just that it's going to be a bit. Josh Norris appears to be getting closer to coming back for Ottawa as well. You have to think that that's maybe not the next game, but it's likely coming soon. He is traveling with the team on their upcoming road trip for a few games, and he was running a no-contact jersey. And Norris was part of practice today, working on power play drills and stuff, so it makes you think it is getting awfully close. Hard to say exactly when. Carter Hart in Philadelphia, that's an interesting story. We got a mixed bag of reviews here between John Tortorella and the team. A lot of conflicting information here today. First of all, Tortorella started the day off by saying that Hart was in protocol, but would be traveling with the team, and that he would be not expected to play at the beginning of the road trip, but it should be by the end of it. And then later it was announced by the team that Chuck Fletcher's placed him on injured reserve. But then right after that, he was out practicing with the team, and it sounds like he is going to travel. So it's so conflicting. I don't know what's going on there, but certainly Carter Hart, after dealing with a collision with his own teammates, it seems to be battling some concussion symptoms, but hopefully won't be out too long by the looks of things here. It just really seems weird in how the information is coming out and being reported there. The next Winter Classic has been rumored to be out west, possibly between the new teams that we've seen enter the league in the last number of years, with the Seattle Kraken and the Vegas Golden Knights. So obviously we got a classic coming up this year with Boston and Pittsburgh, obviously, as well. In case you're interested, I know through our partner Fanatics, they have all kinds of great Winter Classic merchandise for sale. If you're interested in the special jerseys they have, or any of the other merch that they've created, t-shirts and hoodies, etc. There is a pinned comment with a link down below to our Fanatics site showing all the different Winter Classic merchandise that's available for the Bruins and Penguins. So certainly check that out, and any sale you do make does help support the channel, so it is greatly appreciated. It is an affiliate link, but certainly want to check that out. Lots of great, neat stuff there for the Winter Classic coming up. It'd be interesting to see how a game out west between the Golden Knights and the Kraken would go over. Not sure exactly where it would be held, but the NHL has had outdoor games in warmer climates before. Of course, Seattle, not exactly super warm there in the winter, but I would guess they'd be more likely to host it than Vegas, but we'll see as we get more details here as the year goes on. Now, on to the trade section of the video. Certainly want to look at a couple different articles. One's from The Athletic and one's from NBC Sports, talking about a variety of Chicago Blackhawks trade rumors. Now, the Athletic article goes on. There's a variety of NHL writers that have kind of collaborated together here on a very lengthy article talking about a whole bunch of different things around the league, making some predictions for the rest of the season. One of the topics they discuss in the article is the future of Patrick Kane, and where does Patrick Kane end up? Does he finish in Chicago? Is he traded? If so, where? And the general consensus amongst all the writers participating with this in The Athletic was that the New York Rangers will be the landing spot for Patrick Kane. The only other team that really got much votes in the way of the writers was the Avalanche, and there's a few that said that he would stay in Chicago. So that really kind of falls in line with a lot of the different rumors we've heard about Kane in the last several weeks or months leading up to the season. We know that Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, at this point, we don't know if they've had a meeting yet with Kyle Davidson and management with Chicago, but it is supposed to be happening likely sometime after Christmas. Probably hasn't happened as of yet, but as we get into the NHL getting back on schedule here early in the new year, it is expected to be very soon. Many feel with all the losing going on in Chicago and all the tough nights that it's bound to get to the point they'll want to explore other opportunities, but until we hear it from them and it's a little bit more confirmed, it's hard to say. But Patrick Kane and his connection with Artemi Panarin, it appears to be the common denominator that keeps coming up amongst all these NHL writers, predicting that the Rangers will be the team to land his services. Certainly a team that you expect to make a big move. It wouldn't be surprising at all. It's going to be, an interesting playoff season. The Rangers went deep last year. They're going to be trying to build off that. Adding a guy like Kane could be phenomenal to help them do that. Now, the previous time I heard about Rangers and Kane kind of rumored and linked together, there was talk that it might take a significant young player to get him out of Chicago, like a Capo Caco or an Alexis Lafreniere. So I don't know if the Rangers would want to part with a big part of their future, such as a player of that nature, but it'd be interesting to see where things go in that front. Now, the other article in NBC Sports talked more about some of the other players, including Jonathan Toews, Max Domi, and even Sam Lafferty, talking about they should all have a pretty good trade market out there. Jonathan Toews, could be a 30 goal scorer this year. Could end up with some of his better offensive numbers that we've seen in recent memory, which is obviously going to benefit him for not only being a better market for a trade market at the deadline, but also for his next contract, assuming he's going to continue playing in the NHL beyond the season when his contract with the Blackhawks expires. So certainly Jonathan Toews, the two teams that came up in that article as being good fits that, again, have been linked to previously were the Avalanche and the Jets. Max Domi, second on the team in scoring, should generate some interest. I think the whole intention of him going to Chicago this year, he signed a 1-year deal, was to have a good season, bounce back, put up some better numbers, create a buzz, and hopefully get traded onto a playoff team and kind of set himself up hopefully for his next contract. So Domi is on his way to doing that. Hard to say where he could end up, though. There's a variety of teams that might have interest. The article also references that they feel that bottom six forward Sam Lafferty should be able to generate a bit of a buzz and market for himself as well as a good bottom six energy depth guy to add to a potential Stanley Cup roster as well. So certainly Domi and Lafferty, I would throw Athanasiou into that mix as well. A lot of players in Chicago on short-term contracts that are not overly expensive, but could have a pretty decent value to a team, adding depth at the deadline. Certainly Toews and Kane will by far be the big names to watch, and I'm not sure if we'll get any kind of a public confirmation that they're agreeing to waive no trade clauses at the deadline or not, or if that's going to be kept private until we get closer to the deadline. Hard to say, and it's something that I'm sure NHL insiders will be digging on to see what they can find out. But Kane to the Rangers, maybe Toews to the Avalanche, some interesting times. Let me know your thoughts on these articles. Are these reporters on the right track? Do you think they'll end up doing something different? Let me know your thoughts on that, as well as the other news items from today down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.